BRUCAST is back, baby.
This BRUCAST episode is brought to you by the BRUCAST Store. Explore a store filled with awesome goodies from hoodies to t-shirts to mugs. We've got you covered. Stay in style with BRUCAST. Embrace the shock, set the trend. Visit now brew-cast.com/store. Link below.
Back with the fire, can't you see the flames? From Deutschland steps comes the BRUCAST name. Voices like thunder breaking all the chains. Unleash the fury like a runaway train.
Alright, hi everyone, welcome back to another BRUCAST episode. If it's your first time watching the show, make sure to like and subscribe. If you're listening to Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please rate the show 5 stars. This will ensure that the podcast recommends to even more people and allow me to keep doing what I love. BRUCAST also on Instagram, X, and TikTok, where I upload shorts with the highlights of the show. So follow now, BRUCAST on Instagram, X, and TikTok. Links in the description below.
Here we thrive, we survive!
Alright guys, you know what's up, I know what's up. It's time to talk about the giveaway. Yes, the giveaway is still happening. If you subscribe and comment in any of the BRUCAST videos, you might win this t-shirt. We're going to be announcing the winner at the end of this month. So just comment away, subscribe, and this might be yours. Again, we're doing another giveaway. We've been doing so many giveaways. It has been a huge success. But as I mentioned, we're changing the rules a little bit. All we have to do now is subscribe and comment. Before, we were just saying subscribe, but we need more engagement. Guys. Subscribe and comment. And then we're going to announce the winner of this amazing t-shirt at the end of this month. All right, so that's the giveaway. Let's talk a little bit more about our guest. Our today's guest is Anne Riley. Anne Riley is an author and big picture thinker who explores the concept of humanity as an ideasphere. In her book, The Human Idea, Earth's Newest Ecosystem, she combines humor and storytelling to explain how humans can use nature's lessons to address societal challenges like climate change and social inequality. All right, and how are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you so much for being here. It's a pleasure.
Sure.
All right, and I need to start by asking, what is the ideasphere?
Oh, it's a good question with a lot of depth to the answer. But I when I wrote the book, The Human Idea, I discovered that the way life works, before humans, the way life works from DNA all the way through like a body, like a human body, there's a structure, and that gets more and more complicated with time. So if you start with let's say a human body, you start at the very core of every cell is DNA, and DNA, what it does is processes information so that the cell can survive. The cell is sort of the unit of life here on Earth. Everything is made of cells. Every living thing is made of cells. You have 35 trillion cells in your body. Tigers have 300 trillion cells in their body. But all of those cells work together to create a body. And that body coexists because it follows the cells follow very distinct rules. Well, it turns out when humans came, we sort of changed the game of living, but that same structure exists, but it exists with humans instead of DNA at the beginning, it's human ideas or thinking that is the core of basically a brand new ecosystem. So at the core of a human is our ideas, our ability to think thoughts and to put them into action. And we do that through the use of our bodies. So a human in the ideasphere is equivalent to a cell in nature. And what humans do is that they group into big, they group together into big groups like societies. And a society is equivalent to a body in nature. So if you look at these two structures, they're very similar. But because humans think, they change how those rules get applied in many different ways. But the structure exists. And in fact, what I contend in my book is that humans have failed to learn some of the successful strategies of nature that would help them do better at surviving. And instead, we've kind of just winged it because we didn't know these rules when we emerged 200,000 years ago as sapiens. We didn't know those rules. We've just started living the way, we thought we should. But we actually now, as scientists have uncovered the details of DNA and how things work and how brains work and how bodies work, we've uncovered the answers to how a human body actually survives. And we can use some of those rules in figuring out how human societies should survive.
Okay, so I'm gonna be honest. I'm not sure if I understand.
Okay, that's okay. It's a lot. It's a lot. And I went right to the details. So sorry about that.
No, it's perfect. So, could you give examples of some rules? Maybe this would help.
Sure, sure. So, first of all, in a body, any living body, animals, we have we're all made up of cells. They're all the same. They're all the same components in the cells, the same DNA, but each of the cells looks and acts a little differently depending on their role in a body. Right. So there's a brain cell, there's blood cells, there's bone cells, there's all kinds of different cells, but they're all literally the same cell, just programmed to do slightly different behaviors. So in your body, you have 35 trillion cells, as I said, but you have 100 billion neurons, which are the cells that process the brain, right? Process all the things that the brain needs to do to keep the body in sync. So the body, if you had just 35 trillion cells running around doing their own thing, you would be a big blob and would not be a human body. But the human brain coordinates all those cells to do exactly the right job at exactly the right time. Well, if you look at a human society, what is the coordinating body of a society? It's our government. The job of government is to coordinate how the people coexist. This is the first lesson that we haven't really learned from nature. The first lesson is, hey, if we're going to have a government, the government is to be there to serve the people, to make sure that they all can coexist. But the one rule that all the people have is that they can't harm another cell. Just like in a body, a cell can't harm another cell. The heart cells can't beat up on the kidney cells because your body would be dead. But in our societies, we sometimes allow people to beat up on other people, and that seems to be okay in a society. So that we have some of the rules wrong. And so that's one example just of a basic role, understanding the role of coordination and what it should be. If you look at the types of governments we have, monarchies exist to benefit the monarch. They don't exist to benefit the people. Communist countries exist to benefit the state. The democracies are the ones that exist to benefit the people. Those are the most like nature as far as allowing every cell to live as long as they don't hurt the other cells and do their job. They get fed, they get a safe place, they all get to live with the body, right? But in democracies, when we say the well-being of the citizenry is what our job is to do, that's our goal, is to keep people safe and to keep people secure, then that's the closest to a body that we see in nature.
Wow, that's so interesting. So, basically, you're suggest like the government's like the brain of society, and it's
it's a coordinator. The brain, it's the function. It's a coordinator. It makes sure everybody does. It makes the rule. It basically the job of a coordinator is to set the goal, to set the rules, and to enforce the rules. So in a brain, because every cell shares or with a human, every cell shares the same DNA. They all share the same goal, which is to survive, and they all share the same rules, which are the DNA instructions that they have. And all the brain really has to do is enforce the rules, and that's what they do. I mean, if you get a cut on your finger, your brain will run into action. They'll send out the phagocytes to clean up the wound. And pretty soon, you'll have a scar. and then your finger will be back to normal in a few days. When you're young, when it's a little older, it takes a little more time when you're older like me. But that's the job, is to set rules, set goals, set rules, and enforce the rules. That's the job of a government coordinating unit. It should set the goals, which, like in the United States, the goal is our Constitution, right? That's our goal document. Then the legislator sets the rules, and then the executive branch and the judicial branch are the ones who sort of make sure that those rules are followed. But still, even then, we do it half backwards. But the idea is generally there, that the government is that coordinating mechanism. If you have, like I said, if the goal is, like in a communist government, the goal is to benefit the state, then no, the people are just cogs in a wheel, right? They are just being told, you do this, you do this, you do that. But people, this is where we're different, is people like to choose. People have the ability to think and choose. And so when you have people who like to choose, and you have a government that says, we're going to choose for you, that's why communism has trouble working. And that's why they spend so much energy making it work, because it doesn't really meet the needs of the people. Democracy is more like, okay, it has the other problem. It's like, okay, you guys, you get to do what you want, but you can't hurt anybody else. And they say, well, we want to do whatever we want. Yes, we want to pollute the water. Yes, we want to, beat up on our neighbors so we can take their land. We're like, no, you can't do that. And so making the laws are really hard for people, because we have to figure out how to make laws that follow this goal of allowing choice but doing no harm. And this is one thing where I don't think we've just done that. We don't have that basic concept set in stone. In our Constitution here in the United States, we have provide for the general welfare, and preserve the common defense, and do a couple of these other things, but they're a little wishy-washy. Nature isn't so wishy-washy. They're like, hey, you do the rules, or or we're gonna punish you. We're not gonna let you. We'll do everything that you can to be a good cell in the body, but if you don't, we will make sure that we don't let you play in the body. We will kill you. And it's a really interesting comparison. But I go through in my book about how government would look if we use some of these tools a little bit better.
Wow, that's a wonderful comparison. I really like it, and nature is like really really wonderful, right? I just
Well, it's had a long time to work on, its survival. It has been around for 4 billion years,
yes,
or 3.8 billion
yeah,
years on Earth, and they have perfected survival, not by experimenting. Well, yes, by experimenting, but by having such clear accountability. So if a cell can't survive in the environment, it dies. There's no two ways about it. But you and I, if we go into business like Leo last week, and his business somehow doesn't work, he doesn't die because his business didn't work. He just goes in, gets a different job, or finds out, humans have this ability to make choices and not be as accountable to them as beings in nature. So nature had no choice but to develop really good survival capabilities, because that's all there is. All the guys who tried and it didn't work, they're gone.
would you say that nature's perfect?
No, not at
No.
all. Not at all. Nature is right now. Everything you see in nature is the current state of beings, or information, I might say, that fit with the environment we're living in. Nothing is perfect. The concept of perfection isn't in nature, I don't think. There's no ideal, because they're just living. They inherited everything from an original cell. The original cell just happened to put some stuff together that worked and allowed them to take resources and convert them into parts, new cell parts, and to create a new cell generation. Whether that's perfect or whether that just is, I would say it just is. and we are just an extension of what is.
Yeah, yeah, makes sense. Why are you're giving the example why nature, sorry, the brain could be the government? I was thinking, yeah,
Yeah,
like we also develop tumors, right? We also develop cancer from time to time. So
absolutely.
and maybe that's the corruption that exists in the government, like the correlation. I don't know.
Yes.
Do you think it
Yeah, it's
makes
a good
sense?
example.
Yeah.
Cancer is a really good example because cancer starts as a cell who fools the coordinator into thinking that they're a normal cell, right? So every cell when they live, they have to report up to the central coordinators on their status, right? If there's anything wrong, they can't, they can't decide what's right or wrong. So their cells just must report this information. They just send signals up to the brain, and the brain says, "Hey, if everything's okay," the brain just doesn't do anything. But if there's something that's out of whack, like you said, you cut your finger, they'll say, "Oh, emergency on the right index finger. We need to go down and fix. The phagocytes have to come out." And they have a whole system that the brain coordinates and sets into motion to repair that cut on your finger. Cancer is a thing where the signal gets set up and it says, "I'm okay," but really it's not, right? It's not. And it fools the brain. And if you fool the brain, again, because bodies aren't perfect, that cancer can continue to spread and it can copy itself out. Like if you have a pancreatic cancer, let's say, it will copy itself. And if it metastasizes, is how you say that, spreads to other organs, it tries to make every organ a pancreas. Well, if every organ is a pancreas, your body's going to die because it needs the heart and the lung and all these other things. So the body has set up, and the coordinating system has policemen, right? It has phagocytes that go out and keep order. It has little armies the T cells who go out if a virus invades. Yep, you got all these things. So yes, a government can coordinate a military, they can coordinate police, but they all have to follow the goals and the rules and set up. And cancer is one of those things that slips under the rules. And if it's bad enough, it will kill a body. And that's a really good example of what happens when everything that the body has created still doesn't work.
It's so funny. I really like for example, I have a background in game design, right? So
Oh, okay.
when I look at the world, I see levels and boss and
Mm-hmm.
like how I can go to get more experience is like a gamified vision of the world.
Right,
I
right. Interesting.
I know, for example, when I hear Elon Musk talking, for example, he's not working for the government, right? He has a very different vision. So he says, no, the government, it's like a business, it's like a corporation, and the president is like the CEO. And now talking to Anne is like, no, the government is like a brain. So it's very funny how the
Yeah.
background, our
Well,
background
let
shapes.
me,
Yep.
yeah. So, I mean, the government is the opposite of a business. Let me just
Oh.
make it very, very clear. Businesses are like organs in a body. Okay,
Mm.
that's where businesses fit. So your body is made up of cells that are grouped into organs that then are the body. So if you look at a business, they're an institution, and it's not just businesses. It's churches, religious institutions, it's book clubs. Any time people come together to share an idea and to create something out of that idea, then they become an institution. They become an organ inside the society. Okay. The difference is that in a body, organs are only there as an efficiency mechanism. They're only there to serve and become more efficient for the body and the cells to live. In human world, businesses get to exist for their own purpose. So they have their own rules, but they aren't people. I mean, a business is an entity that is non-physical, right? If you might go into a headquarters, but if you take away all the desks and you take away the building and you take away all the stuff, the business still exists. It's in the minds of the people who run it. They can set up on the lawn if they want, so a business is like an organ. And therefore, because a business is like an organ, it can't participate in the government because it has its own rules. If it wants to make a profit, it gets to try to do that, but it has to follow the rules of the body, of the society, in order to do so. It's not a government isn't a business that gets to do its own thing, is to implement an idea and make a profit, or and make products and get people to buy them and make a product. The government is the coordinator of all the people who live. That's a very different function, and they should never be confused. I'm sorry, a business is not a person, ever. I know that's the Supreme Court in the United States says that's true. It is not true. It is the opposite of what's true. People are the only thing that live. They're the only real living entity in our society. Businesses are not. They're made up entities. They're just groups of people who have an idea that they're implementing. That is a very different thing than a person who's physically living a life.
Wow. Wow, I never thought about. Wow, that's wonderful. I never
I
stopped.
know.
Yeah.
That's why I'm so glad you asked the question.
So, and where all of that come from? How did you reach those conclusions? How did you came up with the IDEASPHERE? What's the background of all of those
Oh,
ideas?
yeah. Well, I've been thinking on it for about 50 years. So I started when I was a kid. I learned about evolution when I was in Catholic school. So I knew all about religion and God and creation and all that stuff. And then they throw evolution into the mix,
Yeah.
which was great. I give them credit for teaching real science to me as a fourth grader. But I was like, okay, wait a second. These things don't seem to match. But evolution, the whole idea of evolution is that everything is sort of sensible. It all flows one thing to another, and it's based on sort of how things fit in the world. And so we can't, it doesn't make sense that everything would have flowed for billions of years and we had dinosaurs and all these cool things. And then all of a sudden it all stops and people get dropped into it through a Garden of Eden. It didn't make sense. And so I hemmed and hawed on that, and I've been reading and reading and reading and reading. And it wasn't like it was the primary concern of mine, but I've been wondering about it. And every time I would read something, I would be like, oh, this gets me closer to answering this question. Or no, this one, I'm not buying what they're selling, and even like I studied economics in college, and I was like, I get it. I get how much the profit, supply and demand, profit margin, all that stuff makes sense. It's just not how people work. And so it's not quite the answer to all the questions I have. And so I just kept reading, and I read about John Maynard Keynes, who had a lot of different economic ideas other than the traditional capitalistic ideas. I read Adam Smith, way back from 1700s, but the book that changed my perspective was a book called Bioeconomics by Michael Rothschild. And in that book, Michael Rothschild compared life systems to economic systems, human economic systems. And they lined very closely. And I gave him so much credit because I think there's been such a, refusal or caution by people to connect evolution and Darwinism to humans after the social Darwinism response from the 1880s. I give him credit for even going there, but he lined up these. He looked at competition, he looked at collaboration, he looked at coordination, and he looked at how economic systems work, and they lined right up. And that was just like, it opened up the question to me, which is, well, if economic systems mirror nature, shouldn't the people who made economic systems mirror nature? Isn't that what, that's what humans are? We're the ones who created economic systems. Shouldn't we mirror nature if we did that? And sure enough, that's what I was expecting, somebody a lot smarter than me to write that book. But nobody ever did. And I was like, I got to do it. And so finally, I wrote the book I wanted to read.
That's wonderful. Yeah, because I remember in college I have this I think history teacher. He became a meme. Like the word meme was not a thing at the time, but
Okay.
we would say today he became a meme. He would start every class, every time, every week, just open the door and yelling, "The human is an animal. We're animals," and
Yeah.
it was a very dramatic way of trying to make us understand that we're a part of nature, because there's something
Right.
about us humans that we just forget that we're part of nature. There's animals and they're us. What? No,
Yeah.
we are
Yeah.
animals. So why
Well,
is
the
that?
thing is this is the thing is we are of two systems. We are a natural animal, and we have all the DNA and all the systems that make us a full member of the natural ecosystem. But we have these brains that allow us to manipulate the world in such unusual ways
Yeah.
that we've created a whole new set. I call it the IDEASPHERE, and it's a whole system set on top of nature that is dependent on nature, but is still its own system that totally changes the way we deal in the world. No other animal can think and respond and act the way we do, because we can think. We get to choose between things. Animals can't choose the way we can. Like, for instance, you see a squirrel and there's a dog chasing it. The squirrel's going to run up the tree. The squirrel
Yeah.
is not going to stop and fight and say, "That's not my tree. That's Joe, JR squirrels, not my tree. I got to go to the next tree." No, 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 no. They just run. There's no private property. They just run. And they do what they are instructed to do by their DNA. Otherwise, they don't make it in the world. But we can go along and we can say, "Oh, the dog's chasing me. I don't have to run up a tree. I can turn around and I have a little zapper, or I have a leash, or I have some other tool that I can use to stop the dog from, coming near me." There are things we can do things that animals can't, because we can think and we can make stuff, and then we alter the environment that we live in by doing that.
Isn't that crazy? That for millions and millions of years that wasn't the case. Like the dinosaurs, they're basically the
Right?
like the
Kings of the world.
kings of the
Yeah.
world, and they never reached that level, like the one that we call like smartness or whatever. Like they're
Right.
just killing
Right.
each other for millions of. Yeah, so it's so crazy that it took adversity for us to actually become smart, not time, because people intuitively would say like it just takes billions of years, and over time you just get smart and smart. That's not the case. Like you need adversity, which is like it just makes the odds of life evolving even harder. It's insane.
Right. Well, it's true. I think the thing is, the brain itself is an evolution.
Oh,
It's like plants don't have brains, but they have a neural system,
they hear
because they
music.
don't. Well, they do, yeah, and they don't really need a brain the way like animals do, because plants are sort of set in one place, right? They have their roots and they sit down. They don't need a huge amount of coordination attempt to sit, to do the things they do. So every brain lives in an environment, and they have to trade off the amount of resources they need and the size of brain they can have. So depending on the environment, you'll get a bigger brain or a smaller brain, and depending on what you need. So bees, have little tiny brains because they're little tiny bees, but they do a lot of stuff. They communicate with each other, they live in colonies, they do amazing things. But the brain is an evolutionary thing, like an arm or a leg. And it's just that finally the brain with humans, the brain took an extra step that hadn't been taken before. But I'm sure we've been leading up to that. Primates, some primates can use tools. Some primates, you can actually teach them language. So the brains, mass has been growing. Dolphins have huge brains. Octopus, crows have really big brains. They're very intelligent. If you look at, they remember things. You read stories about crows who dropped like all this, you know, crow poop on a certain person, and they chase him around. It's like,
What?
what did that guy do? Yeah,
What?
they're really, really smart, and they have all kinds of. It's hilarious. It's like, what did that guy do? We must have run over like Grandma Crow or something, and they're just mad. You know, I don't know, but there are a lot of intelligent creatures, but none of them have gotten to the level that humans have gotten to be able to do this abstract thinking and the ability to produce like such creativity. And our ideas evolve on their own too. So our ideas have evolved ever since humans have been creating ideas. They've been evolving too. So what started as language and speech is now, computers and satellites in space, and, you and I, our ability to have a podcast halfway across the world.
That's wonderful. I know, like, as far as I understand, there's a lot of debate what caused this accelerated evolution, right? Some people
Right.
have this, how it's called again, the stoned ape theory, where like our ancestors just ate a bunch of hallucinogenic mushrooms, and that's why our brains evolved so fast. If you ask History Channel, aliens, they mixed up some alien DNA into our ancestors.
Right. Right.
But I think no one really knows, right? There's this missing link. What your take on
Right.
this?
But it is, I guess, for my perspective, and I will do this a lot, is it doesn't matter how it happened. I know it evolved because everything evolves, but whether aliens dropped in and dropped some DNA or some different stuff that helped primates develop brains, I don't know. I know it happened. I know that the brain, you look at what brain, like neuroscientists study, and you see the similarities between primate brains and fish brains and dolphins and all kinds of brains. We are so much more similar to animals than we are different, that it's remarkable. So to me, it doesn't matter. It matters that we are here with these brains, and that we should understand that evolution occurred, and we should go ahead and explore what that means and use the wisdom that came before us to be better at this living job that we have.
Yeah, that's a great answer. That's a really good answer. And while you're talking, I just remember I'm gonna share with the audience real quick that pigs do. Oh, what? Pigs do not have 99.9 the
No.
same specific DNA base per sequence as humans DNA. Sure, we don't share the DNA itself 100%. What? So
Yeah.
I'm wrong?
No, primates are 99%.
Oh, primates. Yeah.
Fish are around 70%, and yeast is around 32%. So if you did primates, it would be like 99%.
Yeah, the difference is about
they have
1.6.
1 so they have 98.4. Yeah.
That's
But
not
yeah,
a lot.
I study this in my book. We're still like 32%. We're just like yeast, and 70. I think we're 72% like fish. And if you look at a fish, they breathe with their bodies, with their gills. We breathe air, with lungs, and yet you can look at the comparisons of how gills turned into appendages, and or gills turned into lungs, and their fins turned into our arms and legs. It's really fascinating if you look at the studies about that. And one of the things that it's really important that I mentioned in my book is that I am very high level. This is a theory at the very highest level, and there are a lot of really good scientists who go deep in particular areas. And what I would like them to be able to do is take this information that I have about how these, this overall concept of how cells work together, and how humans can work together with these concepts, and maybe come up, maybe not scientists because they're busy studying science, but like economists and social workers who can look at this world in terms of here's how your body eats, right? We eat with our mouths, and it's processed in our stomach, and then every single cell is fed. Every single cell is fed, but only one part of the body is actually doing the consumption and eating. There's no the stomach doesn't say, "I'm sorry, I'm keeping this." you guys, good luck. You go get your own stuff. I've got this. No, the body is a system that works together. It's 100% taxation on that stomach, and everybody else gets 0%. They don't work for their food. They get it delivered to them by the blood. And this is how the body stays healthy. So how does our society stay healthy when we're here in the United States, a very capitalistic society where we say, well, if you don't learn how to get a job and, feed your family, then you're bad. And it's not, it might not be so easy. There might be things in the way. We are born with no ideas. And the ideas that we get in our head are the ones given to us. So if you're a kid and you are homeless and you never got to go to school because your parents didn't even know what was going on, you're at a loss. You can't live. But if we had a community, a goal in our world that everybody should have their basic needs met so that they can become full members of the IDEASPHERE, then we would have a system to feed people, to get them health care, to make sure they get educated, to give all these ideas so that when they can come out in the world, when they become adults, they can become full members of the IDEASPHERE. So that's a place where we can learn from the nature who says, oh, we don't care. Everybody gets fed because we need everybody to work, to be part of the body. And we need everybody to be part of the society to give good ideas and to make the world a better place. But we don't really do that. Not in America, at least.
Wow, that's a wonderful view.
Well,
Yeah.
I think Europe does a much better, I think because Europe's societies are much older than ours here in America, they've learned this a lot better. And people call America here, they're like, you're socialist. It's like, no, you're just doing what a society needs to make sure people can fully participate.
Could you give examples of what Europe does?
Well, I would look at in some of the Nordic countries, I've seen Finland do a program where they said, we just don't want to have homeless people. And when you think about it, in your body, no cell is homeless, right? They're all home all the time, right? So we have people who are homeless. So what they did was they built a bunch of housing units. And they gave people help that they needed they had a house, they gave them the help that they needed to get on their feet. And guess what? About 80% of the people who started in those housing units left and have never come back because they don't need them. And so that's an example where they say, this is in the good of our society to do this. And you know what? Most people were like, yeah, we want to do that. We really appreciated the help when we really had a hard time. We figured out what's going on. Now we're back to participating in society. There may be 20% of people who will never be able to do that. And that's what you have to live with. But, you give them the services they need. You teach them, you give them skills, you give them health care, you do all of these things so that they can participate as best they can. Having paid childcare so people can work, having paid health care for people who can work. In America, we had a really great thing called Obamacare, where what the program did was they said, okay, you guys, we're going to make sure that every person, you get a mammogram, you get a colonoscopy, all these things are going to be free. These are services that we think people have to do. They're preventative services so that we can keep you healthy. And the Obamacare, the insurance will pay those as part of, this is part of the service you get. So guess what the for-profit insurance companies did here? They started breaking a colonoscopy into so many little pieces. There was anesthesiology, there was check-in, there was post-operative procedure, there was post-operative procedure, right? And they billed you for everything except the actual time you were in the colonoscopy.
Oh my gosh.
That's what they did. And so this is how in America, things are going. It's like, oh, so our health system became more complicated and it's less effective because people found the loopholes. And instead of, with the politics the way they are, instead of people saying, oh, let's fix this problem, they're like, oh no, let's just kill Obamacare or whatever, and then
What?
that didn't get done, but they've been chipping away at its effectiveness over the years. And it's just like, this is not about the good of the people. This is about the good of the profits for the insurance companies. And that is where I have a real problem with our country, where we can legally, the word I want to use is bribe, but we can legally we can contribute to election and government officials that so that they will make rules that benefit them rather than the people. And that is a violation of the Constitution, I think, is that the only people who should ever participate in government or elections would be people, not institutions, because they don't vote. Institutions don't vote, and they shouldn't be allowed to participate.
Wait a second. Are institutions voting in the US right now? Is that a
No,
thing?
no. They don't vote. They don't vote. Only
Oh.
the people vote. But the institutions can put money into PACs, political action committees,
Lobbying,
and
right?
they can, and they can put Citizens United is the one where they're allowed to the ruling, but they are, institutions can affect elections, and they like, look at the NRA. They will contribute to people who want to make sure we have guns in every hand in America, and that is dangerous because guns kill people. So if I looked at it and, if I were, in charge, I would say, wait just a second. If the good of the people is that people should be able to be live without the potential for being killed by a gun, then the NRA position is completely backwards and wrong.
Just for context, for those who do not know,
Yeah.
NRA is the National Rifle Association.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And that is that's a group. Actually, what's ironic is the National Rifle Association started way back in the 1800s during the Civil War here in America. And it was because kids, the kids who were new soldiers couldn't shoot straight, and they didn't know how to handle a gun. So the National Rifle Association began so that they taught gun safety, and they taught people how to use guns, and they worked with the government to regulate gun use to be safe. And over the years, things evolved, and over the years, it became a tool for the gun owners to maximize their ability to produce and make profit from gun ownership.
Damn.
So many things.
There's a lot of things. I mean, the government's so big. And I need to ask you, because so right now in the US, even there is a democracy, and it's a democracy within a capitalistic society, right? So that's the current state. And as we can see,
well, it's technically a republic.
Oh, it's a republic.
And the difference is a republic is where a democracy is where the people themselves do all of the decision making. In a republic, the people vote for a group of leaders who then do the decision making, and that's what we do. When we vote for our president and our House and our representatives, we are voting for them to make the rules, to become the coordinators in our society.
And as we've been talking for the past 40 minutes or so, it's not perfect, right? There's a couple of things that are not going very well.
No, there are not.
Would you have improvement suggestions or an idea on how things could change in a different direction that would benefit?
Yes, I go into this greatly in my. I have a whole section of this in my book because it has been bothering me for a while. But yeah, the first of all, the underlying tenet has to be that we live with this tenet of people should be allowed to do what they want, but they cannot harm people. So the main idea of that is when you make a law, any law that could potentially harm any situation where it could potentially harm people should be regulated. If there's harm, it should be regulated. Guns, ownership, should be regulated because guns can kill people. You can't always really come back from a gun, especially like an AR-15 or something. So you need to regulate the use of guns. I'm not opposed to gun ownership. I'm opposed to shootings of innocent people. So in order to make sure that we don't have shootings of innocent people by guns, we need to regulate gun ownership. That's just by definition.
I mean,
if you have on the, well, I'm saying it's by definition what I'm saying if you have this mindset. The other side of the coin is that if you have a right that does not hurt anybody else, it should be maximized. For instance, think gay marriage. So honestly, it doesn't hurt anybody else if two people decide to get married and they're of the same gender. It doesn't hurt anybody else. Some people may not like it. That's not the same as harm, you know, but anytime a right that is not harmful to anybody else, we should just leave that alone. Let people do what they want to do. They'll sort it out. But anytime a right or an action can be harmful. So think of water pollution. Think of maybe police brutality. Think of, something like homelessness. Homelessness doesn't hurt anybody, but it's not good for our society because we're losing the potential of these people. So these are questions that our coordinators have to deal with. And you would create a society where you're always looking at where's the harm? How do we prevent the harm? Where are the rights? How do we maximize the rights? And that's how a coordinating unit of humans should be run, in my opinion. And in the United States right now, we've got a situation where we have a level of, our system isn't robust, isn't as robust as we thought it was, because I think the Constitution itself has, it's a little bit wobbly, and like I said, because the preamble was mainly like, here's our goal, and it was basically, here's how you're structured. But the Constitution didn't really anticipate, even though I know the founding fathers talked about it, was they really didn't anticipate that somebody would come in from the inside and try to derail the protections, which is what's happening now. We are derailing the protections for people in America right now under the Trump administration in many ways. And we have a Supreme Court that has been willing to throw out the precedents that we've used for years and years and years and just create new law. And it's been very unsettling to see this shift. And so what I have proposed in my book is that we create a new branch. We have an extra fourth branch that we add to the world, and we call it the evaluation branch. And this is the branch that says,
I'm sorry,
all of
which one are the other three?
Well, there's three now. There's the executive, which is the president and the administration, the legislative, which is Congress, the House and the Senate, and then there's the judicial, which is all the judges plus the Supreme Court.
All right.
And so what I'm suggesting is that right now, that we need an evaluation branch, which is a branch that's a little bit it's made up of people and acts like sort of like a jury for the coordinating function. So our legislators and our judicial branch and our executive branch have to be reviewed for their work according to the Constitution's rules, which in this case is do no harm, allow choice. So that when, like, let's say the legislature makes a law and says gay marriage is illegal, this evaluation branch can come back and say, wait, that doesn't harm anybody else, so that their only rule is to evaluate these actions to make sure that they are following the Constitution. The problem we have today is we don't have a really good way of enforcing people to follow the Constitution. And the only way, like, a president can get impeached, but it hardly, he hardly ever gets convicted, and he'll continue to break the law, or, and people will say, oh, he's the president, it's okay, and it's like, no, it's not okay. You are harming people. And so I realize this is a very high level, it's a theory, But this is, I think, the way we need to go to put a few more. We need to be able to put a little more robustness into our ability to have a constitution that really does protect the people.
Interesting. So this fourth branch would kind of work as sort of police for the government? Is that a good?
Kind of like it's more like I would look at it more like, how you have a board that oversees the management of a company, but it would be made of people. But it's like, no, here's your goal. The problem with the board, of course, is that they just reinforce what the management is doing because they're all trying to maximize profit, which I have a problem with too. But in this case, the goal, it's sort of like a board, but of people, but they're looking at only this one thing. You guys have to do what is constitutionally correct. It's like a constant feedback loop for the constitutionality of an action. So it's, there needs obviously a lot of work, and it's hard to make a fourth branch of government. Oh my gosh, you need 3/4 of both houses of Congress and 3/4 of all the state legislatures to agree with you. So that would be a big lift, but something has to be done to reinforce our system so that we can ensure that we create laws that are fair and that we enforce them fairly.
That's such an interesting idea. But wouldn't you let me rephrase? Wouldn't you think that this fourth branch would make everything a little bit more bureaucratic and would actually make the changes of laws and changing on the Constitution even harder to happen?
Perhaps, again, the goal is a simple one. I mean, if you look at nature is very, very simple. It does one thing. It says, I'm going to do these things to survive, and it says, you guys report up this information, and then we'll evaluate it and get this back to you. And so I think it's more like, it could make it more bureaucratic, but what it would really do is we're in a world where information is cheap. We can make reports that say, okay, we can make system IT information reports that says, okay, these are the things that weren't following the sort of prime directive, and these were. So let's just focus on the ones that weren't, or let's focus on the main ones that impact the most people. So yes, every time you create a new system, you create more bureaucracy. But all of this nature, all of the things that we do in a government should be compared to this one directive. There's not a million directives. There's one directive. Don't harm and maximize choice. And that makes choices simpler and easier to understand. Now, how you implement them can be very creative, and you can do lots of different things. And that's where the art of your experts comes in, where they say, well, we could try this, and we could try this, and we could do this, and we could do this. But what you're really trying to do is always keep things streamlined to maximize choice, minimize harm. And if you do that, I think we will have better societies. And I would think that over time, if we all are educated in this way, we'd get the sense of it and kind of live that way a little more easily.
Wow, that's a wonderful directive. So maximize choice and reduce
harm.
Sounds ideal, right? I have nothing against that. I don't think anyone would have anything against that.
That's my view, is that I think if you asked anybody, they'd say, yeah, that's a good deal. I get to do as much as I want, but I can't harm anybody else, and they don't get to harm me. Deal. I'll do that. I think that would be, and you know what? That's how nature does it. That's the whole point. This didn't come to me out of the blue. This came to me from nature. This is exactly how the cells work. All the cells, the coordinating mechanism, the cells, they like, hey, you guys get to just pump that blood, do your thing all day long. You know, we're not going to bug you, but you can't mess with the other cells. And they don't. They all coexist, and you live happily ever after,
And
right?
I have no choice but to ask you because that sounds actually the opposite that the government is operating at the moment with the whole Dodge thing, where they're just cutting
Right.
branches very abruptly. And
Hmm.
I need to ask, what's your view on this?
Well, my problem with it is that they're saying they're treating let's cut regulations as the goal, when the goal should be let's not do harm and let's make sure that the government is maximizing choice and minimizing harm. That's not even a consideration. They aren't even thinking on that term. They're just cutting stuff willy-nilly, and the consequences are like they don't even know the consequences. They're just cutting it like it's numbers on a page, right? And then what happens is all of a sudden it's like, well, now we have nobody to handle the nuclear, you know, X, you know, stuff we have to do. Oh, hire those guys back. Oh, oops. Ah. And now they fired the whole IT department, you know, the other night. It's like, are you kidding me? You know, but I think that I don't know. I can't read anybody's mind. I know just from looking at it that it looks very haphazard, not deeply thought out, not planned, and it will have consequences that are unexpected. The consequences will come because you haven't prepared anybody. You haven't even made any assessments on your own about what's going to happen. They're just doing it, you know, and so it's going to be it's going to hurt a lot of people in the meantime, and it's not necessarily going to solve the problem of efficiency, because they are dealing with efficiency. They're dealing with numbers, and they don't understand the efficiency that's going on. They're just taking a big, blunt, blunt axe to something that might need a scalpel.
Hmm. Yeah, the latest thing that I heard from it was like um, Elon Musk. He was saying like the goal is to go fast and break things. That's like his motto,
Right.
and
Right.
that's how you achieve efficiency. And but yeah, you're
That
gonna
is,
go ahead.
yeah, that is a really great flippant statement to say, but if you're a coordinator, breaking things is not the way you do things. I mean, just think about it. He doesn't understand his role. He thinks he's in the role of the businessman. He's the guy who thinks the business is government. And he thinks that, well, yeah, you go in and you disrupt and you break things. No, 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 no. You're the coordinator. Your job is to keep things working smoothly. And you have to think, now that we're in this system, you have to think carefully as you change it. And this is where I think, I do think, Joe Biden did a really good job of rebuilding the economy after COVID, of reinvesting in our infrastructure and doing these things. And it's just getting blown up again. And it's hurting a lot of people. And it's the completely wrong, I mean, ass backwards approach to government. It is Elon Musk is got the 180-degree wrong view of what government ought to be. And I'm embarrassed as an American for him to come in and do these things, because he is just there's been a lot of Americans before him that have studied hard and looked at things carefully and have worked out really complex problems, and he's just blowing them up, and he's doing it for his own, it looks like to me, for his own ego, rather than for the good of the people. And that is a violation of the Constitution. If he ever took one to uphold the Constitution, he's violated it.
All right, and I love talking to you. I could keep going for another hour, but we're almost reached our time limit. I need to
Yeah.
ask you where people can find you. What's the name of your book? What's your website?
Okay, well, my website is thehumanidea.com, and that's the best place to find me right now. I'm in the midst of making a second edition of the book. I did a couple of changes, wanted to do a couple of things to make it a little clearer. It's a really accessible, readable book, and I think I'll have that ready to go in another couple weeks. So hang on. If you can't find The Human Idea, Earth's Newest Ecosystem right now, hang on, and we'll get it there. Put a tag on it, and we'll get that to you as soon as we can. But I also have a YouTube channel, The Human IDEASPHERE. So you can find, I've been kind of slowly going through the chapters of the book and kind of explaining them visually. You can do that. I'm slow at that, so it might take me another, 150 years or so to get that done. But what's time between friends? So
you're gonna get there.
But, yeah.
Do you have any final remarks? Anything else?
Oh, I just want to thank you so much for having me on and for having such a good discussion. I got a chance to talk about some things that sometimes I don't get a chance to talk to about. So I really like your BRUCAST, and I really enjoyed this.
All right, thank you so much. I really enjoyed it as well. Okay. Thanks, then. All right, everyone. If you know what's up, I know what's up. Everyone know what's up. Make sure to like and subscribe. And comment. That's the most important part. And you might win this beautiful, awesome, sexy T-shirt. We're gonna announce the winner of the giveaway at the end of this month. So stay tuned and see you next time. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. If it's your first time watching the show, make sure to like and subscribe. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please rank the show 5 stars. This will ensure that the podcast is recommended to even more people and allow me to keep doing what I love. Check out now the BRUCAST store, Explore store, filled with awesome goodies from hoodies to t-shirts to mugs. We've got you covered. Stay in style with BRUCAST. Embrace the shock, set the trend. Buy now at brew-cast.com/store. Again, that's brew-cast.com/store. Link on the description below. Be a BRUCAST model and get free stuff. We'd love to see how you and your loved ones enjoy BRUCAST. Snap a picture of yourself, your family, your friends, or even your pets wearing BRUCAST merch, or watching an episode of the show and send it to us and become part of BRUCAST. We'll feature you and your pictures at the end of every episode, just like the ones you're seeing on the screen right now. You can upload your pictures at brew-cast.com/contact or tag us on social media. Alright everyone, it has been a pleasure. Thank you so much and see you next time. Bye bye.